The context of postmodernism must be considered with respect to the other perspectives. The magical, the idea that God is the creator of all things, who used the divine power of language, utterance, to speak things into existence. The ontological, which poses the question, what is, grounding itself in the metaphysical, and viewing knowledge as that which is ultimately there. The objectivist prides itself on knowledge attained through an empirical process of discovery. The Enlightenment, producing René Descartes and John Locke, also produced a scientific approach to knowledge that is characterized by the importance of using methods to prove whether something is true or false. René Descartes and John Locke inspired new truths, ones proven through scientific inquiry. The expressivist champions the artist as the knower of truth that is ultimately obtained through the creative mind. The sociological perspective purports that language is the tool of society and exists necessarily as a function of that society. Structuralism comes out of this, expressing that it is the social structures that determine everything we do. Essentially, postmodernism turned the other perspectives on their head. Largely starting in the 1960s, postmodernism describes a series of movements that undermine the known rhetorical perspectives by contradicting them or removing their ground of meaningfulness. The two-level theories that the Enlightenment produced stated that the manifest image can be explained by the scientific image and inspired other binary systems, such as Freudian psychology or Marxist theory. The manifest image, the way that people thought of themselves since the Enlightenment, was characterized by truth, knowledge, reason, and progress. There is universal truth, and it is possible to obtain objective knowledge of it through reason and thereby making progress. These fundamental principles that leap from the ontological to the objectivist largely construct the reality as it was known. Postmodernism shakes those principles to reveal, most importantly, not a new truth, but that perhaps there is no truth to be revealed. Postmodernism suggests that our construction of reality is based on assumptions, and therefore our understanding of it is unreliable. Postmodernists attack the image of self postulated by Descartes, who said that true knowledge is obtained through doubting everything. But I cannot doubt that I exist because of the very act of doubting. I think, therefore I am. I can doubt anything except the fact that I exist, because even the act of doubting means that I exist. Postmodernists say that it is a mistake to think that you have such a direct access to yourself, that your understanding of even yourself, that of your own self-knowledge, is relative to our perception of it. Jacques Derrida comes up with a specific variety of postmodernism called deconstruction. He argues that language is a system of differences which determine one's ability to differentiate between concepts, not just words. Language establishes a structure, a system of interrelated distinctions, and that is all that language is capable of doing. Words point to other words, signs to other signs, in an endless play of signification. He says there is no truth in text. You make meaning when you read it. There is no end-all truth to be found. He does not bind himself to the metaphysical codes of truth, and feels comfortable misleading, even lying, to present a challenge to the reader. The point being that he wants the reader to be suspicious of all writing. Also, he understands that there is a danger of being self-refuting if he says there is no truth and is simultaneously expecting you to believe that. Challenges the system of beliefs built on assumptions. There is not a guarantee that history happened as it is documented. Even thinking about it leads to the suspicion that we never know objective truth because that requires a simultaneous absolute awareness of it across space and going back to the magical, this is why people feel comfortable in the omnipotent power of God, because they know they cannot know everything across these planes. Derrida calls this the transcendental signified, the ultimate source of meaning, which cannot be represented or substituted by any adequate signifier. If there is no determinable truth, Then what is the difference between fiction and nonfiction? If knowledge in the form of text merely points to other text, which point to other text, and we cannot know their validity, motivations, truth, then how do we know anything? There is no principal difference between describing what you perceived, believed to be nonfiction, and what is imagined. We use words to describe a world which we don't have the ability to get to, no way of reaching the underlying transcendental signified. He also denies the thesis of reason, criticizing the belief that reason should be at the center of things. This logocentrism is a tool, he argues, that autonomous powers use to maintain their hegemony over other groups. Meta-narratives, stories about stories, began to be challenged as postmodernists like Jean-Francois Lyotard moved toward the suspicion about truth in texts, ideas that shaped Enlightenment thinking and much of the modern world were raising questions of doubt. Not only were they doubting, they were changing perceptions on doubting, challenging Western metaphysics and their foundations, challenging truth and reality itself.